Hey, get ready to burn your books because today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/jumbled. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Jumbled, your favorite podcast about nothing. My name is Zach, and as you can tell from me just continuing to talk and not letting Joe speak, Joe's not here, and there are a number of reasons for that. Joe's fine. Let me just go ahead and say that he's healthy. He's virile. He's very much alive. And you don't need to worry about him in that capacity. What you do need to know is some recent happenings. Joe has decided to step down from the podcast, and these are for personal reasons that he has. I think the content of the podcast, seeing as how we're sort of loose, we're just sort of off the cuff, say whatever comes to our minds. That can lead us to some maybe questionable content. Not to say that we've really said anything bad, but Joe's a teacher, so he doesn't want any of the things that might have been said on the podcast to come back and affect him in a negative way. And I understand that. I don't want that to happen for him either. We had a talk, and we've... there's no bad blood. There's no hard feelings. Does it suck? Sure. I mean, I was listening back through last week's episode today, and I got a little emotional, but that's just because, it all sort of started dawning on me. But there's a lot more for the podcast. And that's not to say that Joe and I are done podcasting. For the time being, we're, Joe's taking a break probably until the new year. And then we're going to, in the meantime, we're going to be brainstorming for ideas for another podcast that might have a more defined, sort of structure, and definitely more edited and not as explicit as this podcast is. Not to say that we're insane, just like talking about whatever, but it can get a little bit, hairy from here to there. So I understand why he made the decision he did, and it's no big deal. So I've begun to figure out how to move this thing forward. I'm not giving up on this podcast. This is sort of, it's something that I really enjoy doing, something I really love and really believe in. So I'm in no way giving up on this podcast. It's an unfortunate thing that Joe's leaving, but we'll continue on. And I say we because the plan is for our resident fact checker, Jonny, to join the podcast in a more permanent, not to say he wasn't permanent, but a bigger role. He's going to be stepping in for Joe. Now you might be thinking, Zach, Jonny's in Canada and I'm moving. No, I'm just kidding. Jonny and I are going to be doing, weekly Skype calls, and we're going to record our audio separately. We'll splice it all together, and it'll be just like we're in the same room. And I'm kidding. Jonny's moving to the area. I'm kidding about that, too. What am I kidding about? Do you know? I don't even know anymore. But Jonny will be taking a bigger role in the podcast. I'm looking forward to that. It'll be different, but it'll be good because, I've known Jonny since, would have been my sophomore year, so it would have been 2000, about 10 years. It's been about 10 years that I've known Jonny. which just blew my mind. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Jonny will be on the podcast starting next week, so we'll just look forward to that, and if you want to listen back to the old episodes, we've got 35 of them with me and Joe in it, so feel free to go back and listen to those if you miss Joe's voice, or you can wait to the new year. And I'll make sure to let everybody know on this podcast what the new podcast is, what the plan is, and we'll just go from there. So that's all I got for that portion. It is what it is, and we're at a good spot. It's something that Joe felt pretty strongly about, so and I'm not gonna fight him on it. That's his decision to make. It was his decision to get into the podcast with me. It was my decision to get into the podcast with him. So, being as close as we are, is it difficult? Sure. But it's not something that's going to put a strain on our relationship. It's something that we can look back on as being fun while it was lasting. And now we get to move forward in a different capacity, in a different way. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like, and for you guys to experience that as well. So I'm going to get into my notes that I had, and hopefully the cat does not bother me too much here. Go on, dude. You hear my cat right now? It's a little asshole. Hey, dude, lay down. That's the thing I hate about cats. You can tell a cat all day long, go away. They just do not get the whole point. They think that you're playing or something. I'm not playing. I'm not playing at all. Oh, gosh. Okay, so let's get into the podcast thoughts here. Some things I have written down. I should probably let you guys in on this little tidbit. I got a nice new fancy speaker. And I want you guys to... It's called a Mimecast, and I've never heard of it before, but the personal assistant on it is really awesome. She's really personable. Here she goes.
The Bluetooth device is ready to pair.
Oh, thank you so much, Mimecast. Oh man, you see, she's Asian. That's not a joke on Asian people. This Bluetooth speaker that I got was in a grab bag that my boss got at a conference, and he just sort of said, "Hey, you want this? Whatever." And it was off. So it's like, yeah, sure. It's got a suction cup on the bottom of it. Like, it's not something I would ever really use, because who uses a Bluetooth speaker with a suction cup? And I'm pretty sure it's not water resistant, so it's not like you can stick it to the side of a boat or anything, But I turned it on, and I was sort of taken aback, because it's obvious made in China or Japan. I would assume probably China, because everything's made in China. But here she is one more time.
The Bluetooth device is ready to pair.
The Bluetooth device? That was funny. It was a lot more funny when I thought about how I would sort of piece that together. All right, let's keep this train wreck moving. There's another podcast that I came across, and it's called Jumbled Podcast. I was a little taken aback rather, at the name. And their first tweet on their Twitter account, conveniently enough, was our release date for this podcast, April 26th. So what's up? What's up, Jumblecast? That guy has not released a new episode since August, though. So, as far as releasing on a regular schedule goes, I say we still got the edge. It is what it is. But I don't know how I did not I guess I stopped Googling the name after we sort of solidified it, because why would you need to do that? But yeah, so I came across it. I think I accidentally searched iTunes for Jumble, or maybe it was Twitter for Jumble. I don't know, man. I don't recall exactly what it was, but yeah, that I thought that was pretty interesting. Apparently the dude who does that is like, I don't know, he called himself a former YouTuber. So I don't know what he did. I've never checked his YouTube channel out, but the podcast is all about gaming and stuff. So seems like he had the Jumble sort of name for a bit before, but I thought it was sort of convenient that he announced his podcast on the day we released ours. You know, just sort of strange. I don't know the guy, so maybe it's just coincidence, but I mean, his Twitter handle is literally one character different. Like, instead of Jumbled podcast, it's Jumbled podcast. So, I mean, you tell me. We had Twitter set up like a week before we started recording and releasing the episodes. So you got to think he was probably like, maybe call it Jumbled or Jumbled podcast. Oh no, can't do that because there's another Jumbled podcast. Well, hey, I'm still do Jumble podcast. Jumble. By the way, if you're not doing a word jumble, don't use the word jumble. You know, Jumbled. That it's the D that makes all the difference. There was a joke in there somewhere about male anatomy, but I'll try to keep it highbrow. Yeah, so, you know, if you want to go listen to his stuff, I think he's only got like 4 episodes. He announced the podcast back in April 26th. And then he had like 4 episodes across a 4-month span. So he's releasing like one a month, which I guess like if you're doing, like, if that's what you set out to do from the get-go, cool. Like, there are expectations, but he said in his first podcast, the expectation for himself was that he was going to release every 2 weeks. So why don't you have 8 as of August, you know? And then going forward, because life happens sometimes. And I think we all understand that now. Me, myself, pretty heavily now. Anyway, going back to my notes. Hey, did you guys hear the McRibs back? Or show of hands, how many of you actually care? Okay, I obviously can't see any of your hands, but I'm willing to wager the vast majority of anybody who hears my voice does not give a shit about the McRib. And if you do, you're part of the problem. It's not ribs. It's not. Like, there's no bone in it. Like, why is it called a McRib sandwich? It's supposed to look like ribs. It's not ribs, though. It's not like it's not like all the meat's been pulled off of ribs and piled on bread. It's not. It's supposed to look like ribs, but there's no bones. So what is it? McDonald's. Answer the question. What is it? What are you, McDonald's? What are you? I don't know. My dad always tells a story about when he was younger. He's a teenager. He used to go to McDonald's every once in a while, and he would just, go through the drive-thru. And he'd get to the point where he's ordering his food. Excuse me. It's yawning with Zach. I actually might be able to use that artwork. Maybe. We'll see. No, he used to go through the McDonald's drive-thru line, and when he got to the point of ordering his food, he would say, could I get the McNasty? And then he would drive away. And I always thought that'd be really funny to do. And it's a super dad joke. Like, my dad was doing dad jokes before dad jokes were dad jokes. They were just lame jokes at that point. I don't think dad jokes had their own category back when my dad was doing it. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. Stop. Let's talk for a second about our sponsor today, Audible. Head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled and get a free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. The book that I'm recommending for the month of November is We Are Legion, We Are Bob. It's book 1 in a series of 3 books known as the Bobiverse. It's written by Dennis Taylor, narrated by Ray Porter. It's got a running time of 9 hours and 30 minutes. Basically, the book is about a gentleman who sold his software company, and he crosses the street and ends up getting killed. Wakes up a century later, finds he has no rights. He's been turned into artificial intelligence. He's been put into a probe, and yeah, it looks pretty interesting. Again, this is a series of 3 books, so we are going to cover November, December, and January for the Bobiverse. So if that sounds like something that you would like to listen to, a little bit of ear candy, head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled. Hey, get that free 30-day trial. You're welcome. It's really difficult. I'm finding this out quickly. 16 minutes in, like it's too late to turn back now. Like whatever train wreck's happening on the mic right now is just gonna happen. This is difficult to do, but luckily, like I said, Jonny will be here next week. So I really just wanted to get on the mic because I've said it before. It's sort of cathartic, to just get on a mic and talk about whatever. It's just sort of a good way to clear my head, to just after a long day, just get on the microphone and sort of just talk and not have to think about the rest of the stuff or reflect on any part of the stress or anything like that. Hey, let's see here. What's going on? I'm looking at news. So apparently, we talked about Kevin Spacey last week. So CNN's reporting, I don't know, it's CNN, but CNN's reporting that the end of House of Cards would wipe out 2,000 jobs. Now, I know they mentioned Baltimore earlier when I read this. Let's see here. Filmed around Baltimore. Okay, so it's a big production in Baltimore, in and around Baltimore. So there are people that, when you have a big show such as House of Cards, when you have a big show like House of Cards, if you're filming it, on location elsewhere, like other than LA, you got to assume that a good amount of whatever you're bringing in, whether it's food, entertainment, whatever, it's like the local area is going to benefit from that. So all these businesses and whatnot that are benefiting from the production are just sort of screwed. I mean, they've probably seen a rise in their profits. The yawn cast is happening. It's real. So yeah, man, I can't believe it. Kevin Spacey, before all this shit came out, I really did like Kevin Spacey. Thought he was a pretty versatile actor. He's there have been grumblings about his sexual orientation. It means absolutely zero to the caliber of actor I thought he was, but it's just it's a shame. I actually liked Kevin Spacey. It's sort of like a Bill Cosby situation, but not as extreme. Whenever I heard about Bill Cosby, it was like one of the comedy gods was outed for being, a human. Like he's pretending all this time to be a god, but he's actually just a little rat, God, how what is it? How the mighty have fallen, or however that goes. It's pretty apropos. Kevin Spacey, he's a really good impressionist as well. I've seen several clips of him online of him doing. God damn it! I'm boring myself, guys. This is awful. I've seen several different videos online of him doing impressions. Really talented in that area as well. So it's a shame, man. It is a shame. I've only been talking for 20 minutes. This feels like forever. So we don't need to rehash Kevin Spacey. I'm just trying to see if there's more. Woo! For season 4 alone, almost 2,700 cast, crew, and extras were hired from Maryland. Jesus. That's nuts. So, 2,000 people from that area that just are out of a job. I mean, from what they were saying, it seemed like the show was winding down anyway. But, now it's just done. It's just done. Which it should be. I mean, should Baltimore, Maryland, fall victim to this? No. Should the rest of the crew or the cast of the show fall victim to this because of Kevin Spacey? I mean, no, they were not complicit in his actions 30 years ago, but it sucks, I mean, that's one person, your star, your main guy of the show. It is like a house of cards. It really is, because you take one of the cards from the base and the whole thing falls, and it's definitely what's happened with this show. It's unfortunate. And, I haven't even watched House of Cards. Like, it's not even... I mean, I've watched it. Not since the first season. Oh, my God. Dude, I gotta shake the yawns. I gotta do some push-ups or something. I don't know what I need to do. This is nuts. But, yeah, so... House of Cards, man. That's nuts. I haven't watched it, like I said, since the first season. But it's... It was a pretty good... It was a pretty good show. At least from the time I watched it. I always sort of just thought he was a bit of a skeezy sort of guy. Sort of got the vibe from him back in the, was it Pay It Forward with Haley Joel Osment? Yeah, he was creepy. He's creepy then, he's creepy now, he's creepy. Yeah, so that's pretty nuts, man. My Packers are sucking. It's nothing new. Aaron Rodgers went down, we talked about that. But they've lost 2 in a row since Aaron Rodgers went down. 3 if you count the game that he got injured in, which was against the Vikings. So it's not looking good. Not looking good for him. He was saying that if he's healthy, he's going to come back. If there's still a couple games on the schedule, he'll come back and play if his bones healed. I don't believe that. Like, if he heals up, but we're like 7-9, why? Why come back? Or at that point we're like 7-7, we're 500. Unlikely to get, unless it's a wild card spot, unlikely to get a playoff spot. Thinking the Vikings are probably going to take the division. So I just say set him out. Don't bring him back. Why? What's the point? What's the point? To get a couple measly fucking games under his belt? Nah. Just let him heal up. Fucking bring him back next year, obviously. And get some more help around him. Get a better running game. I don't know what we need to do. There always seem to be somebody injured on the Packers. And this season it's been the offensive line that's just been completely demolished. Brian Bulaga, he's one of our tackles, he just tore his ACL. And he just got back from an injury. And then he got injured again. So it's like, I don't know what the strength and conditioning team for the Packers is doing. But something feels like it's not working. Because there's always somebody that's hurt. Whether it's Jordy Nelson with his ACL, whether it's Aaron Rodgers with a collarbone, whether it's, the offensive line obliterated, the secondary that's always chewed up. It does not matter. We're always injured. Sort of nuts. Don't like it. So this week I'm not gonna push it too long. I feel like leaving it about 30 minutes is sufficient, especially seeing as how I'm doing it by myself. I appreciate you guys. And so I think now we'll get to fact checking with Jonny for the last time.
Hey guys, let's get cracking in on those facts, starting off with CFCs. Some cool little tidbit of information here for you. They were invented by Thomas Midgley. Thomas was born May 18th, 1889. He died November 2nd, 1944. He was an American inventor. Congrats, USA, for creating something else that destroys the world. Donald Trump. Anyways, his two most famous inventions are both now banned because they're dangerous for the world environment. And they are the use of lead in gasoline and CFCs in refrigerators. That's cool. Scat music. I always wondered where this started too, because it seems so weird. But really, if you think about music in general, it is kind of a weird and personal thing. It is thought to be originated through Louis Armstrong's 1926 recording of the Heebie-Jeebies, which I feel like Zach knows this song. Zach, you have to know this song. But anyway, that is often cited as the first song to employ scatting. There are many other examples as well. So yeah, that is going to Louis Armstrong, 1926, Heebie-Jeebies. There you go. The guys talked about the Marvel comic universe, specifically with the Hulk. So the actors who you guys were talking about who play the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, which is the current one, who I think is actually the best one. I'm pretty happy with him. Edward Norton, who was the one before. Apparently they had him flagged, but he was being a big jerk to work with. And I guess, yeah, that's the case. He's tough to work with, and because he didn't feel like the series was going anywhere. Maybe he regrets that now. The one before that was Eric Bana, which is the one that you guys were talking about. He's from New Zealand? Australian? I don't know. He's got a cool accent. But he's pretty sweet. I kind of wish that he would have stayed because I thought he did a pretty good job. But at the time when that Hulk came out, Marvel movies were just really campy, and it unfortunately didn't hold up. And then before that, of course, is Lou Ferrigno, who is like the classic Hulk. The guys talked about what Zach would do for $50, or Zach doing something for $50 came up. I can't quite remember. I feel silly for not writing it down, but it made me think. Zach, what would you do for $50? And maybe this is like a new weekly challenge of a question. Either Joe proposes it or I propose it, and it's just a simple, what would you do for $50, Zach? Because I know you need the $50 because you still need to get your passport so you can come to my wedding. Hint, hint. So I might be throwing some challenges out there to see what I can get you to do for $50. You down? Let me know. And then the last two things, the Iditarod is 938 miles. So not a bad guess, Joe, on the 700 miles. When you first said that, I was like, wow, that's ridiculous because that's crazy far for dogs. But yeah, 938 miles, which is insane. Those dogs and even the mushers are, that's a physical feat. Those are athletes right there. And then just a final confirmation, RCA did make a typewriter. I was trying to find a year. They had several models to try and find the first one, but unfortunately wasn't that successful. But can confirm they did make a typewriter, which is always weird when you see strange electronic companies making things like Mitsubishi makes TVs. And I always wondered how Yamaha makes dirt bikes and music gear. I guess you got to diversify to make money, and it's working for them. So all the power to them. So the points were tied leading into this episode, and they're going to remain tied. going forward. Though I have a suspicion that there's an opportunity for more points for Zach to follow through with the $50, but also maybe for Joe to come up with some really good ones that make me laugh. Anyways, those are the facts. Take care.
All right, Johnny. Got a few bones to pick with you. First of all, I think you pronounce it Louis Armstrong. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think it's Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong's my accountant, okay? Louis Armstrong. His name is Louis. Obviously. And you said it twice. You said Louis twice. So it's not like you just messed up one time. You genuinely think the dude's name is Louis Armstrong. I don't know about that, Johnny. You also said Lou Ferringo, like flamingo, like rhyming with flamingo, but Ferringo. Lou Ferringo. No, Ferrigno. G is before the N, obviously. And hey, Johnny, don't worry about what I do in my spare time and what I would do for $50. My shame, obviously, knows no ends. I could care less what people think of me, so what I would do for $50 is my business and my business alone. Maybe when we start podcasting together, we could get into that. But for now, I think you need to mind your own business. That's what I think. You said I need to get my passport. Okay, so I do have an update on this story. I had my passport appointment scheduled, and I went into, to my appointment. I was on time. I was before time, obviously. I was ahead of time. I'm a time traveler. I made sure that I was there before time existed, and then existed, because I can stop time. Anyway, so I went in and I got in line, and then I got to the front of the line, and I was like, yeah, I'm here for my passport appointment. Obviously, never had a passport before. I don't know shit about what's happening. I don't know what's going on. So she's like, oh, you don't have your paperwork filled out. I was like, oh, no, I don't. I'll need to do that, I guess, real quick. She's like, okay. Do you have your birth certificate with you? And I said, huh? She said, your birth certificate. You got your birth certificate with you? And I said, no, I don't. Do you take any other forms of identification? And she said, nope. No, we don't. So now I am in the process of trying to find my birth certificate, so that I can get my passport. So that's where I am with that. I fully intended I had the money on hand at that point to get my passport, but wasn't prepared. Didn't know what I needed to do. Didn't know what the prerequisites were, and so I showed up ill prepared, and that's on me. I'm sure I could have done some preparation, but I thought it was a pretty straightforward process. I didn't know I needed a goddamn birth certificate. Obviously, I was born. I have a state issued identification. Just take that. I'm not making it up. I'm not saying I'm somebody else. My name really is Zach. Promise. So anyway, so we're tied up, me and Joe, and that's the way that fact checking with Johnny's gonna end. But we're gonna have a whole new venture here with Jonny next week. He'll be here, like I said, full time every week going forward. And if he's not, maybe I'll get better at this solo podcasting stuff. But it's hard. This is difficult. Like, I used to make fun of people who do solo podcasting, but it's like there are people out there who have really good, successful podcasts, and they're just by themselves, Like Chris D'Elia, he's got Congratulations, this is his podcast. I'm yawning so much. I hate myself right now. And you guys probably do too. Why is that guy yawning in the microphone? Does he not care? I do, promise. Just don't know how to do anything by myself. I need people. No, Chris D'Elia's got a really successful podcast by himself. And it's hats off to him, because this is not easy to talk. I'm surprised I've been going for 35 minutes right now. Honestly, when I hit 20, I was like, oh, it hasn't been 40 minutes yet. Holy shit. Didn't realize how much I relied on the other person until doing it by myself. So anyway, let's wrap it up here. You can find us on SoundCloud. You can find us on Player.fm, Google Play Music. We're on iTunes. Please head over, rate and review the podcast. Joe stole all the Etsy merchandise. He sunk $3,000 into a podcast that he quit. So joke's on him. He's drinking out of Jumbled mugs for the next 2.5 years. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Look all that stuff up at Jumbled Podcast. And thanks. Oh, we're on Stitcher. I don't want to not mention Stitcher. We are on Stitcher. Head over there. I don't have the address right in front of me, but it is on our SoundCloud page, so you can get it there. And if you want to send any emails, feel free, jumbledpodcast@gmail.com. And make sure to keep up with us on Instagram and Facebook. Those two seem to be the places where we're getting a lot more interaction than elsewhere. So, or if you want to start interacting more on Twitter with us, feel free to do that as well. I do look at all the stuff here pretty soon. I'm sure Jonny will start looking at all the stuff too, and we'll just go from there. But for now, I guess we will sign it off. Thanks again to our sponsor, Audible. Head over to audible.com/jumbled. That's wrong. Head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled and get your free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. Thanks a lot, Audible. We appreciate it. And that's going to be it, guys. So make sure to check back next week for a brand new and totally exciting episode of Jumbled, your favorite podcast about new stuff.